Good afternoon to all of you. Very welcome to Pisa. Very welcome to Scuola Sant'Anna. It is my greatest pleasure to open this summer school organized by the Civitas Soteria Consortium, and we will have in a short moment the possibility to have a few words as well on behalf of Civitas Soteria, this summer university which is organized for DG ECHO. My task here is to briefly introduce you to the aim of this event, to present you what is going to happen. Just 1 second, because they are Let me just very quickly remember you that Scuola Sant'Anna is a public university, autonomous. So here we are not dependent from the University of Pisa, but we are working in close cooperation, obviously, with University of Pisa, and we promote education, research through undergraduate, master, and PhD programs. As an education institution dedicated to excellence, we are obviously running several research activities in different fields. We are involved in many research projects, more than 80 worldwide. And you see here a few examples of our most recent research activities, which have been produced very recently. Inside the Scuola in 1995, we launched the so-called International Training Program for Conflict Management, whose goal was to train civilian staff, mainly civilians, but also police and military at a later moment, who were interested to serve in international operations, such as civil protection, emergency, human rights monitoring, election observation, peacekeeping, and peace building. And this is a little bit the link in between what we will be doing in the next 3 days and the Scuola Sant'Anna. I'm now pleased to give the floor to Petra Palmero, Executive Vice President of ICF, which is the consortium which is providing this training, this activity for the event.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you also for upgrading my title. Welcome everyone to the summer school. I'm really pleased also to see so many faces here, and also as ICF are responsible for the logistics side, realize that for some it has been quite a trek to arrive here. So thank you. It's beautiful weather, so we hope that this will make up for some of the more difficult travels that we've had. We have the Civitas Soteria partnership. Let me quickly introduce that to you. We're a combination of organizations, doing academic research, evaluation, training, really about how do adults learn and how to make it easier for them to learn. You are here to learn. It's a summer school. Technological experience, and also we very much benefit from the support of multiple civil protection agencies, because of course they are the ones that the heart of the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. This is actually everything that I want to tell you. I hope that you have a good period here. We will see each other in the master classes again, and I'll go back to that there.
Thank you very much, Petra. As you know, in the last months, weeks, days, there have been several natural and man-made disasters in different parts of the world. Italy has been very strongly touched by these events, and we would like to express that we feel very close to the communities affected by this disaster, and we would like to express our solidarity to all the families who suffered or lost someone in their family or lost their property. And in the meantime, we would like to pay due respect to all those who are supporting the communities who have been affected. If you don't mind, I would like to suggest that we hold 1 minute silence in memory of those who lost their lives and in support of the first responders and volunteers who are doing the best to minimize the consequences of the value disasters. Thank you very much. Let me just highlight which are the key aims of this summer school. You see them listed on the slide, so I'm not going to read them to save time, but we understand that they are quite ambitious, but we are trying to do our best to be able to achieve all of them, and we will try to use the lessons learned in the previous event, which took place in Florence about a couple of years ago. And we tried to make it as interactive as possible because we understand that many of you are interested not only in increasing your knowledge, but as well increasing your competences and your attitudes. The content of the masterclass, as you know, there will be a few plenary sessions today and the day after tomorrow, while tomorrow it will be split into small masterclasses, which will be delivered in the morning and the same masterclass in the afternoon. So each of you will have the opportunity to attend 2 masterclasses. And we have assigned you to the different masterclasses, taking into consideration your request, and we have been able to fulfill basically all your requests. These are the different topics which will be dealt with in the masterclasses, and I'm very grateful for all those who have accepted to coordinate or to speak in the different masterclasses. Let me just remember a few activities which are going to happen. There will be this introductory session, and there will be the keynote speeches. And I'm very grateful for the guests who joined us, and especially to Mr. Curcio of the Italian Civil Protection, who has a very busy agenda, as you can imagine in these days, but he made his possible, and we are very grateful to him for having been able to join us. I would like to remember that there are as well a certain number of social activities. I will come back to them in 1 second. But from the content-wise, tomorrow we will have the master classes, and on the day after tomorrow, we will have once more the plenary session in which we will present the main findings of the master classes, and there will be as well some kind of closing speeches and evaluation. For the plenary, we will be in this room. For the master classes, you have received a detailed map where the master classes will be put. There is as well a certain number of social activities. As you are in Pisa, in Tuscany, which is probably the most beautiful region of Italy, we could not avoid to offer you a guided tour of the Leaning Tower and the Piazza dei Miracoli. We will start immediately after the end of this session, or better, there will be a photo book immediately after, and then you will be accompanied by our guides to pay a visit to the Piazza dei Miracoli. At 7:30, there will be a gala dinner, which will be served where we had the lunch today, but it will be seated. And then around 20:45, 21, we will have a concert, which will be in the church, which is just next to the place where we had our lunch. On tomorrow, there will be a dinner in the restaurant La Clessidra, where you will be able to taste a typical Italian and local food. And on the day after, we'll have the farewell lunch. As we are speaking of emergency, I think this is a must. Please take note of these instructions. In any case, you see where the doors are. You have 2 doors here and 1 in the rear. The meeting point is at the entrance of the school. There is a small hill. This is the place where you should gather if you hear the alarm. I know that many of you are interested in knowing the Wi-Fi connections. We have been able, and I'm very grateful to the rector, which allowed this as an exceptional situation, that we are offering you free access to Wi-Fi without the need to register. It will be important because today and as well in the next days, we will ask you to use, because we will have a certain number of interactive sessions. The access is free, and it will be available today mostly in this room and for tomorrow also in the rooms where the master classes will be held. Let me just finish remembering to all of you that the plenary sessions will be recorded and they will be put at the disposal of those who have an interest. And all the material which will be used, all the PowerPoint presentation which will be used by the different lecturer and resource persons will be made available to you on the shared folder, so you don't need to take notes. We will share all of them with you. Having said this, I don't want to abuse of my responsibility of the chair, but I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you to the rector of the Scuola Sant'Anna, Professor Sabina Nuti, and I ask her to give her presentation. Sabina.
So thank you very much, Andrea. I'm really very, very happy to be here today to open this summer school. And I think that the topic you're going to discuss is really relevant and not just for risk disaster management, but I think for all the community, the society, in all the different issues that are relevant for science. I work in the healthcare management field. And so after the pandemic, I think we saw a lot about how complicated is the relationship between scientists and policymaking and how relevant is to close this gap. So I'm really happy that you will have these 3 days to discuss this topic and to understand how can, from different sides, facilitate this process that is based on respect, that is based on a different behavior that allows and helps people to listen to each other. And also, I think that also the academic world can learn a lot on how to collaborate more, especially when we have to work on very complicated issues that need an approach that goes over a silos type of behavior, even from the science part. And I'm very happy that Chiara Carrozza is going to be here because I think she has a lot to say about this. What does it mean to be interdisciplinary and to be able to put together different approach for complicated challenges that I think the world is facing. So thank you to Professor De Guttri for organizing this really interesting meeting within the consortium, and I leave you back the floor and welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sabina. It is now thank you for all the support Scuola has provided in these years for allowing us to increase the activities, research activities and training activities which are related to management of emergency situation. It is now my greatest pleasure and honor to introduce you Fabrizio Curcio. I think everybody knows him, but in any case, he's the head of the Italian Civil Protection Department. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask him to bring to all his staff and to the huge number of volunteers operating with the civil protection, who are working so hard in Emilia-Romagna in these days, our expression of empathy and thanks for the precious work they are doing. Mr. Curcio, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor De Guttri. Thank you also for the words and for the expression of solidarity that arrived from, I can say, all Europe, all the world. And thank you really so much to have underlined this, this situation in Emilia-Romagna. Good morning, everybody. After having listened to Professor De Guttri, I am tempted to cancel my next meeting in Brussels and stay here for 3 days with you, because we have many things to do, many things that are very interesting for the civil protection system, but I'm sorry I cannot be with you for a long time. But first of all, let me really thank Professor De Gutri and the director Sabina Nuti for the invitation to this opening session of the summer school. We're talking about evidence for policy in disaster risk management. It's a very important issue. I say some few words about our connection as a civil protection with the scientist part, and the special thanks obviously to all the authorities that are here. From Perfetto, Alessandro, thank you so much to be here, and the President Maria Chiara Carrozza from CNR, President of CNR, all the colleagues that are here participating in the next days, and all the scientists, the professors, the decision makers, the people that work belonging to the institutions, all persons that will animate the discussion, the debate that we will have around this topic. It's time to share the knowledge, to share the experience, to share the skills. And we will have the chance, the occasion to see what each of us, the perspective of each of us. And we will try also to build a common view, because the very result of this work will be, if we start it from our point of view, we will build together a common point of view. And thanks obviously to DG ECO for this important initiative, the consortium. As you probably know, the Civil Protection Department has already supported in the past such events in similar theme, and this is also the occasion to underline that we will continue in these important activities. We think that's very strategic for the system. In particular, the discussion will be around the relationship between science and decision makers. I think it's something that is connected with the daily decision, strategic decision. We always are in the middle between what we should do and the decision that we take at the technical level and at the political level. On this regards, I would like to emphasize how the Italian civil protection is based on this relationship. It's evident for us the importance of the connection between science and the civil protection activities in all what we call the cycle of the emergency. And this is because when our father, Giuseppe Zamberletti, planned the system and realized the system, he was absolutely aware of the importance of the scientific knowledge. And he was also aware how it's important that each decision that each of us take is based, it is taken on the fundamental pillar of the scientific basis. That's why in all the cycle of the civil protection activities, forecast, prevention, managing of the emergency, and restoring activities after an emergency, we must start from what is the science point of view. And that's why in our system, we start from this connection. We develop this relationship in year, beginning from the very first emergency that we will manage. And we become stronger in this relationship day after day, year after year, emergency after emergency. Trying, how I used to say, to make new mistakes and not the old one. That's why now we have this strong connection. We have our centri di competenza that are our center of excellences that are composed by Institute of Research, university, consortium of university and administration, public institution. They are our point of reference for the decision that we take in the whole cycle of the emergency, and provide us technical and scientific evidence for our decision. So centri di competenza, but not just centri di competenza. I would like also to mention our Commissione Grandi Rischi, that is our technical scientific advisory board for the major risks. So we have this board that we convene each time that we need a very important advice from the scientific part, technological part, to take the decision at the level that each of us has to take. And regarding this, we are now processing the new composition of this board that is quite almost to be finished, and we have already changed the governance of this commission. Talking about the international world, I was last week, 10 days ago, in New York. We were in the middle term review of the document of the UNDRR, and we talk once again about Build Back Better. It's our cycle. Try to do the best that we can do when we take the decision after the disaster. And talking about the GEC or European world, I think that we began our relation exchanging tools. We began with a plane for the forest fire. It was the very first exercise. Then we began to change team, modules. You have seen what we have done together in the Ukraine crisis. More or less everything passes through the mechanism, so it works. So it's a very good, important thing that now we try to make a longer step about the connection with the science, also at the European level. That's why JRC, I would like to thank JRC, because they help us to do what we have already done in our country at the European level, to share the scientific and technological issue at the European level, to be more performant, each of us in our country, and all together when something occurs. I would like to mention Copernicus. And it's another very important tool that we used. We use it in every emergency, but we use it, for example, in Emilia-Romagna. It's something that we built together. In this sense, building and sharing what is science can give us and we can use at the operational level. But now we have to do something more that is connected with not just with the connection at short and medium term. What we built until now is forecast what happened, how we can manage. Short, medium term. Now we must have a look, try to make some long-term foresight. How can we manage the climate change if we don't open the timeline? If we don't say that this connection with science is strong, but not just because today is raining and maybe I can know it before. But what will be in the next 10 years? What will be in the next 15 years? And what will happen to our communities in the next 15 years? And we will discover that somehow something that will happen. It's already happening. And we will discover that if rains 500 millimeters of water in 10 days, in a part of our country, like Emilia-Romagna, that is what rain in an ordinary time in 9 months, maybe we will discover that something that will happen, it's already happening today. That's why we have to make another step, that is to connect the science at the long-term foresight at what we have to do now. And we have to work very hardly to bring the people from our side. It's not possible to discuss these themes without our communities, our people. So we must work a lot to communicate, to reinforce what is the connection between the institutions and the citizen, because just if there is the trust between people and institution, the people will follow us. And we had to build together something that it's easy to communicate to people. And this is very hard because people is every day fighting with ordinary situation. And let them understand that between the ordinary situation, there is also the managing of what we do, for example, with the climate change and our chores that we do daily. So that's why I think that these 3 days, in which we will discuss with the hybrid people, I love us. When I read hybrid, I was imagining something connected with the PC and the computer, China attacks and something like that. But it's very, very important how to put together hybrid people that knows from center research, that lives in the public institutions. How can we manage together this path that we have to get together? Because only if we really will be able to connect this information to our community, we will have people that will be able to recognize the risks, because sometimes we don't recognize the risk, and then we will be able to face it in a proper way. Only in this, on this method, we will have the possibility to reduce the impact of the event that there will be. Whatever we do, these events will occur. And the only thing that we can do is to get higher resilience of our community with awareness, with exercise, and talking about the connection between science and decision making as a normal situation. It's not extraordinary. It's what we have to do every day. So really, thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much to all the people that will be in these 3 days part of this path that I would like, we will continue together. So much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curcio, for having shared with us your views about the future or current challenges you see in the area of our concern. I think it was very interesting. On the basis of your experiences, we trust 100% that these will be really the big challenges, and many of them will be addressed in the coming days. Now, to finish with this opening session, I am very pleased to give the floor to Dr. Artur Malantovics. He's the team leader of Knowledge Network Coordination at the European Commission, DG ECHO. And I take the opportunity as well to express my most sincere thanks to DG ECHO for having given us the responsibility to organize this summer school. Artur, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Let me first of all welcome you very warmly on behalf of the European Commission, you, the participants. We have close to 70 of you coming from over 30 different member participating states of the Union's reproduction mechanism, and even beyond that. So welcome to everyone. I think this is a great opportunity for us to come together and in the spirit of the motto of the Union's reproduction knowledge network to connect, share, and grow together. And I'll get back to that in a moment, but before that, let me thank very cordially our hosts, to Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, Professor Nuti, Professor De Gutri. Thank you very much for having us. I think it's a fantastic venue where we immediately feel at home. And it's also a venue that we sought after because we wanted a place that will stimulate intellectual exchanges between all of you. And hopefully this is exactly what you will experience later today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. And great thanks to Italian Civil Protection Department for the support in organizing this event, particularly in this very difficult time, which also makes, I think, us Europeans proud, despite the very difficult circumstances, because yet once again shows that the European solidarity works in practice and brings very tangible outcomes, where our colleagues from different member participating states are there on the ground supporting the operations in Emilia-Romagna. But the floods that happen in Italy is only part of the broader context that bring us together in Pisa, with the summer school, evidence for policy and disaster risk management. Some of this context was already mentioned in the slide that Professor De Gutri presented. Just, the floods in Afghanistan, the floods in DRC, the tropical cyclone in Myanmar and Bangladesh, or the drought that we are facing in vast part of the Mediterranean. I mean, this is all that emphasizes that there is a huge relevance and huge importance to what we do today, so that we, break free from our disciplinary boundaries, so that we break free from, definition of who we are as a scientist, as a policymaker, as a hybrid expert, hybrid person, so that, by getting out of those borders, we become better. And this is exactly my message to you for this particular event. And maybe the facilitators of different masterclasses might not be happy with that, but I'm calling upon all of you to challenge them, to challenge what you're hearing, to challenge their perspectives, because only through that you'll be able to understand their perspectives better. And maybe you will change your own perspective in the process. And eventually, at the end of the event, you will leave a slightly bit of wiser, or maybe with a different opinion, and that will help you move forward and continue working on the files that you're working currently. Because regardless whether you're a scientist who's providing evidence for policy making, for decision making, or whether you're this typical boots on the ground person that is actually implementing civil protection operations, this is exactly the space for the exchange. This is exactly what we, as the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network, would like to facilitate for you. And by saying we're not only DG ECHO, because the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network is collaboration between different parts of the European Commission. And here, thank you to our colleagues from the Joint Research Center, but this is also collaborations with every single member and participating states. So this is exactly the member participating states who nominated many of you as participants to this event. And this is exactly why we want to work very closely together with every single one of you. So one very small remarks at the end. Don't forget that this event is also about the human connection, about the human dimension. Yes, we're here to learn, to challenge each other, but we're also here to build our professional networks. Because I think only by understanding, and transcending, this human dimension, by, realizing that sharing knowledge is worth little if there is no human component to it, we will then be able to capitalize more on that kind of opportunity. So that's what exactly I'm hoping, that this summer school will be a springboard for many of you for all those amazing new collaborative ideas that you're going to leave with the day after tomorrow. So just to wrap up, at the end of the day, this is exactly the purpose of the summer school. This is exactly the purpose of the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network, so that you can exchange, you can learn from each other, because this is fully in line with what the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network stands for. It is so that the Union Civil Protection Mechanism and its community, so every single one of you, has the knowledge and expertise to effectively do the work, to prepare for, to prevent, to prepare for, and to respond effectively to the challenges that we're facing together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. Now I will pass the floor to Arthur, who is going to chair the following session. But just let me once more express my most sincere thanks to all those who have taken part in this very opening part. Let me as well express my most sincere thanks to the authorities, the civil authorities and military authorities being present here for this opening session, and to give the floor to my rector, who I know would like to pass a small present to. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And I would imagine that a few of you have questions to Mr. Curcio. He has a very tight agenda. He has to leave around 4 o'clock. We will now start the second session, but hopefully there will be a few minutes in which we will still benefit of his presence. So if you have any urgent question, that would be the right moment to call them. Someone is. Okay. This is from our part. So it's for you. So the Protection Department. Thank you so much for hosting us. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrea. We're switching right away to the next session of the day, which is the session of keynote speakers. So I'd like to invite to the stage Professor Maria Chiara Carrozza and Dr. Tom de Groff, so that we have our keynote speakers. What do we have that name? Thank you, Luca. Yes. Thank you very much. And at the same time, and you'll hear that in a moment in the video, we wanted to pass apologies and greetings from Christos Stylianides, who I don't have to introduce to anyone, I presume, former Commissioner for Crisis Management, and most recently Minister for Climate Crisis and Civil Protection of the Hellenic Republic, who, as it turns out, was elected as a member of the parliament just recently last week, and the inauguration is happening I think as we speak, or at some more or less around this time. Mr. Stylianides has kindly sent us his welcome message. So let's listen, please.
Colleagues, dear friends, let me start by thanking DG ECHO and the Knowledge Network for their kind invitation to address the starting of summer school 2023. Allow me special thanks to the head of the Knowledge Network, my really very good friend, Felix Bloch, for the excellent job he and his team have done to put together and develop the Knowledge Network. Thank you so much, Felix. Thank you. I'm really sorry that I cannot be with you in person in beautiful Pisa. It was in my plans to join you today, but politics, as you know, is a very volatile field. So my political obligations here in Athens did not allow me to be with you physically. Nonetheless, technology allows us to have this virtual communication, and it's a real pleasure and honor for me to address today's event. I'm sure that the room is full of familiar faces, a room full of expertise, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again in person in the near future. Before I go further, however, let me express my deep condolences to the people of Italy and the Italian authorities for the tragic loss of life during the recent devastating floods. My thoughts, our thoughts, are with the victims, their families, and all those affected. Dear friends, the European Civil Protection Knowledge Summer School has already become an important hub, a true hub of knowledge and applied practices, a hub which connects first responders, disaster risk managers, scientists, and decision makers, and at the same time matches their needs for expertise and good practices with methodologies, tools, solutions, and resources. For us, politicians and policymakers, these kind of instruments are extremely useful because they bring to the decision-making process the scientific knowledge, expertise, and know-how. At the same time, they allow for teamwork, enhancing cooperation and promoting innovation. It also allows us to discuss applied practices and exchange ideas for action on the ground. And I'm telling about concrete action which serve our common purpose, which is to prepare for and to respond to current and emerging risks and challenges in disaster risk management. Here, let me underline the fact that the work the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network is doing is very crucial. And I'm really proud because during my mandate as European Commissioner for Crisis Management and Civil Protection, we established the knowledge network within the RESC-EU framework. And I'm really very pleased that it has grown, it has matured and established itself as the scientific, the know-how arm of the European Civil Protection Mechanism and RESC-EU. Dear friends, dear colleagues, as we all know, climate change, climate crisis remains one of the most pressing challenges for our planet, if not the most pressing, frankly speaking. Climate change is causing more frequent and severe natural disasters, wildfires, severe floods, and droughts, and so on and so on. Extreme weather phenomena are the new normal all across the globe. We saw that in Italy a few days ago. Very painful experience. Last summer, the whole of Europe experienced prolonged periods of extremely high temperatures and heat waves. Record-breaking temperatures which no one could imagine before. And the projections for the coming summer are alarming. Unfortunately, the facts speak for themselves. So, to tackle the consequences of the climate crisis, we need to act together, to join forces, and to preserve European solidarity. Because no country, no matter how big it is, can respond effectively to natural disasters. And there is no better field where European solidarity has concrete results than the interlinkage between climate crisis and civil protection. Understanding this linkage and all its parameters, we need to engage with science to bring scientific knowledge on board. This is really key. Scientific knowledge and expertise must be at the core of our decision-making processes, especially when it comes to crisis management and natural disaster management. Otherwise, our decisions will be the target for questions and doubt. Science and technology are essential elements. We should therefore utilize them to the maximum degree in order to build our prevention capacities, but at the same time to secure that our response capacities remain robust and effective. Ladies and gentlemen, in Greece, the Ministry for Climate Crisis and Civil Protection was created to meet the new needs in disaster risk management. Our main goal is to bridge the traditional approach to disaster risk management, which focuses on the response, with three key pillars, the very well triangle: prevention, preparedness, and resilience. This is our new dogma, which guides all our actions and initiatives. A holistic approach aiming to enhance our adaptation efforts and strengthen our country's climate resilience. An approach which puts emphasis on collaboration and synergies on a global, European, national, regional, and local levels. Within this framework, we are bringing scientific knowledge and expertise at the core of our decision-making processes. We are establishing a national database for all natural and man-made disasters. A database which will, first, be supported by various teams of scientists and experts. Second, monitor and model all relevant data and also provide applied case scientific scenarios to the operational arm of civil protection, which is the, as you know, the Hellenic Fire Brigade. This instrument will act as the scientific arm for the Hellenic Fire Brigade and will be at the core of the upgraded National Crisis Coordination Center, which we are building. So our objective is to collaborate with universities and research centers in Greece to collect all data and information related to all types of natural hazards and to use this data towards applied practices on the ground. At the same time, we are building cooperation with the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network, and we are initiating different types of collaboration with European and international scientific and learning institutions. Dear friends, in the extremely challenging and demanding field of disaster risk management, every instrument aiming to strengthen our resilience is really valuable and helpful. To this end, the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network is an invaluable tool of utmost importance. Through courses, trainings, exchange of experts and workshops, the Knowledge Network had developed a community of civil protection and disaster risk management actors. And through field exercises, it evolves our national capacity and work. It helps cultivate deep mutual knowledge of operational and administrational procedure, which also is a key element in the case of an emergency. So there is no question about the added value of Knowledge Network. That's why we must continue supporting its development. We must continue providing to the Knowledge Network the necessary resources, human and financial resources, to enhance its ability to respond to the increasing needs of a complex crisis management field. Dear friends, the times are challenging. We need to strengthen our collective action capabilities and capacity. To achieve this, the synergies with the scientific community are crucial. Science and the scientific community are our partners, working together under an applied practice framework, helping us on the ground. This is the only way to cultivate knowledge and educate our societies. This is the only way to safeguard trust in our disaster risk management policies. At the end of the day, this is the only way to build resilience. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Minister. I'm sure that he will watch the live streaming to hear whether there was applause at the end. Thank you very much. Moving right to the next of our keynote speakers, Professor Maria Chiara Carrozza, who is a person of many talents. Among many other things, she's a physicist, she's an engineer, she's a politician. And she, among many of the functions that she has served in the last years, she was Minister of Education, Universities and Research in Italy a few years back. And for the past 2 years, she's leading the National Research Council here in Italy. And interestingly, she's back in her alma mater, because this is where she received her doctorate in engineering and where she also served as rector here at Scuola Sant'Anna. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here again after many years. I was rector here, and my preparation, a PhD, and also postdoc, researcher, and full professor, I've been here for many, many years, and I learned so much. And what I learned here is fundamental still today in my profession. So I try to be fast and try to convince you that being between science and politics is something which requires a lot of balance and a lot of skills, and basically human skills, not only scientific and technical skills. So this summer school is fundamental in order to develop such skills and also to understand from different models and different perspectives how to work in this area, because our future relies on the possibility of balancing science and politics, and in decision-making, basing decision on science and technical knowledge, but also looking at the human factors and social factors. So this is important. Okay, so I am president of the National Research Council in Italy, and we are so much involved with civil protection in Italy. We are a competence center of civil protection. So this system was already in place when I became president, and I think it's something which is much interesting, because to be center of competence for the civil protection means that you do your science, your project, your technical activities, but also you are in a network which is available in order to provide support to the civil protection. Support means many, many things, from giving people and volunteers and also researchers, giving a hand and mind and giving time to civil protection, but also give infrastructure, research infrastructure, data and knowledge, which is, I think, fundamental for civil protection. So we know that our economic growth has some pros and cons, and that human activities already serious altered 75% of the terrestrial environments and 66% of marine environment. So you know how this economic growth based on efficiency and on the ability to grow and the possibility to grow affected so much our planet. And now, after 100 years of being a research council, so this year we are celebrating our 100 years of activity. We know that the future 100 years, we have to do something to save our planet and to save our world as it is today, because we know that science and technology now need to do something valuable in order to save the planet. How to do that? So we are a community of different research areas, institutes, 88 institutes around the territory, from the north to the south, 500 employees, many researchers, and this year we are celebrating our centenary, so we decided to give some keywords in order to understand how science can do something for the next 100 years. And so there is green transition, clean energy, sustainability, biodiversity, some keywords which are fundamental in order to relate science and civil protection and risk management. Many, many activities which are related to this centenary, also scientific diplomacy, One Health, are related to the subject of this summer school. What is fundamental today to understand for politicians, decision makers, people organizing risk management, is that research today is performed through infrastructure, large research infrastructure. That means infrastructure for environmental monitoring, for monitoring the sea, for monitoring forests, for monitoring cities, from atmospheric monitoring to the deep water. We need infrastructure, and the infrastructure and people working in those infrastructure is people which is fundamental for civil protection and risk management. Because if you want to monitor your territory, you can exploit those infrastructure for part of the time and extract data that are fundamental in order to model and to develop knowledge which is fundamental. So we did a lot of things in this area, not only for civil protection, but also for example, pandemic management in the area of Xylella, which is an important threat for our olive trees in Puglia. We are performing here in Tuscany meteorological forecasting, especially on the coast, on the sea, but we are collaborating with regional authorities. So the collaboration with public administration, regional authorities, national authorities, and agencies is fundamental for research councils today. And this happens all over the world, but also in Europe, in the European Union is fundamental. And so it's fundamental to compare the different methodologies that are performed. So this is something from 1963. You are looking at the most dangerous animal in the world. So there was a mirror reflecting the human being, who was already destroying the world. So the awareness that we were affecting the world was already in place in 1963. And today we are in transition from the age of efficiency to the age of resilience. Resilience is the keyword for civil protection, is the keyword for future. We have to image our future by being resilient to all emergencies that are affecting our future. So I think that is fundamental. So to be resilient means to be able to understand what is happening and to plan reaction in a methodological way. So we are a center of competence. Mr. the director, responsible for competence for civil protection, Fabrizio Puccio, is always in contact with us. So we are, you see this list of institutes, from Institute of Bioeconomy, Institute of Environmental Geology. I don't read the list, but many, many research institutes are competence centers. That means that when there is something which must be managed at the central level, they are already in the network and they know what to do. So, and for example, in seismic risk, there are many, many activities which are related to civil protection, but also in hydrological monitoring or flooding, for example, something which is very, as we know, important today in Emilia-Romagna. So we are part of the system. We use our infrastructure in order to take data, to take competence, to take instruments, and then we are able to react. So, and we are doing also monitoring, measuring, acting, and also predicting and modeling, which is the role of science, is to take data from nature and then to extract those data and to implement models which are able to predict. This is the most relevant task. So there are also many activities which are, this is related to marine geohazard and similar. So we are doing this at all levels, from the sea, the ocean, to the coast, and to the forest and to the sea. But there is not only this. So this is related to our service to the community and to civil protection. But we have also a mission to anticipate what is happening. So this is the reason why we developed a new biodiversity research center in Italy in the framework of the National Recovery Plan, which is based also on European Union actions and funding, and to understand how biodiversity is related to our future and related to the natural abuse and use, because many, many industrial activities depend on natural resources that we are affecting: agriculture, food and drink, construction. There are 3 key economic sectors which are related to the nature. So Biodiversity Research Center means that we develop monitoring, measuring, recovering of biodiversity, and also studying how biodiversity is related to climate change. And also we develop nature-based solutions. That means what is based on nature is sustainable from the natural point of view, can be the new economic paradigm of the future. So biodiversity is a sort of indicator of the health of our planet, and we are working in order to put biodiversity at the center of our studies and to change behavior of people, to engage citizens in understanding the importance of changing behavior and changing economic model to go and to address sustainability. That means that we are organizing, first of all, education of scientists, education of engineers, education of officers that will become aware of what natural and nature-based solution and biodiversity means. We are developing platform for open data, for example, the genetic screening of all our species from the sea to the forest and also to the urban forests. And then we are deploying and studying new key enabling technologies for extracting this knowledge and from these platforms. And we would like to support new business based on the biodiversity and nature-based solution. And then we will develop a new model of a gateway for entering into biodiversity, for entering into technology, and for giving support to companies and to a new business, and also for citizen science engagement. So to reach people and to make people aware of what is happening. So at the end of this presentation, I think that this is a metaphor. I am launching a sort of meteorological balloon from the base of Germany, which is a joint base between France and Germany, which is very close to the Italian base in Ny-Ålesund in the Arctic Circle. And I think that in the Arctic is happening something which must be monitored, because it's anticipating what will happen in our future, the fusion of ice for start, but also the presence of alien species and the evolution of biodiversity. And I think we have to work together. It is not possible to work on that at regional level or national level. We need European Union, and I think this is one of the areas where we need more European Union, because we have to address together something which is the challenge of our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. We will jump right ahead to the next keynote speaker. Tom, please take the floor. And in the meantime, I'll introduce Tom is currently acting head of unit in charge of the disaster risk management science in the European Commission, science in a very broad understanding of the entire disaster risk management cycle. And it's also lead unit developing the disaster risk management knowledge center, which is a founding block of the scientific part of the knowledge network. Tom, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here to have this event with you and to be in such high presence of all of you. I am really keen on this kind of event because I've been involved in this for basically since Senda, since the beginning of in 2015, when it became clear that we had to talk more to each other and we had to break barriers across science, and science needed to be part of disaster risk management. We at the JRC started to think how to do that, and we started to we immediately built a knowledge center, a disaster risk management knowledge center, with the idea really of bringing together the disciplines and bringing together, bridging between the science and the policymakers. Now, the JRC is part of the European Commission, so we are a science center inside a political organization. So we are actually the bridge we have to build is not so big, even if it is from Ispra in Italy all the way to Brussels in Belgium. No? My center is here in Italy, and this 1,000 kilometers used to be a big hurdle, and also that is always getting easier in the way with with working together to remote work and all of these things. Let me see if I can advance with the clicker.
I think it's
Here it is. Perfect. So I have the clicker here. So this is a picture of a couple of years ago, 2020, the first summer school as a method to bringing people together to talk about, what we want to achieve. It was Florence, so it seems that Tuscany is really a good place to meet for this type of events, and we're very, very happy that it's again here in this beautiful setting. It's really inspiring.
Please note the month of the summer school before.
Indeed, it was a bit difficult to organize, and by the time the summer school was organized, it was January. So, but still, the weather in Florence is always nice, and also then it was sunny, and we really enjoyed it. It's a bit a different format this time, but the principle is the same, to bring people together in classes and have supposedly experts stand in front of the class, but actually in the class there's people that are also experts and sometimes more experts. So what was said before of challenging the experts teaching is a really good principle. We need to talk, we need to exchange information. So this is really very near to our heart at the Joint Research Center. We are a group of about 120 in the GRC, 60 scientists, a lot of IT developers, and we do a lot of work. But in the end, since we started the Knowledge Center of building these bridges, a lot of things happened, and we have the relations with member states, with different disciplines, etc. And this has never stopped. Now, there was a lot said between science and policy, science and practice, but also it's between the member states. No, we are here from 30 different countries, and also the bridging between the different member states is as important, because some member states are more advanced in one area than another area. And there's not always so many opportunities to meet each other. So again, today, this is really a good opportunity to bring to each other there. So maybe during the lunch, you were all sitting with the people you knew. Maybe during dinner, you should sit with people you don't know and start really the bridging. My intervention will be through actually 3 pictures. The first picture is this fantastic map that was produced last Friday. It is a map of the European Commission. It is typically produced by us at the GRC for the ERCC to monitor what's going on. Every day there's a map like that. If you don't know it, you should go to the ERCC portal and you will see all these maps. But what's special about this map is that it's the first time that we really collaborated with a member state, with Italy, with the teams of you, Fabrizio, to build the information, to put together the information of the Italian, the Italian civil protection, and also from the European side, what Copernicus had together, and all. So this becomes really, it's a very nice example of how this collaboration really can become really concrete during emergencies. And the maps are not just on top of what's happening at national level, but it's with national level, and the European part comes in the process. I think this is a very nice precedent, and we are, of course, very happy to continue to do this with other member states, to have closer relations there. And at the same time, we continue, of course, to develop at European level this capacity for situational awareness. Very important here too is the integration of things. So it's not only information coming from one discipline, it's these maps typically bring together a lot of different information from different sides, be it hydrological, this is a landslide community, and it all comes together in a picture. And a picture is more than 1,000 words now. It gives you can study this map for a long time and learn see the narrative of what's going on. I also put a small picture of what happened just yesterday in Lago Maggiore, where our center is located. There was a very quick thunderstorm that developed, and that unfortunately caught a boat on the lake, and this capsized, and there were a few people that drowned also there. It's very important that citizens are aware of what the risks are, and I think this will be a concurrent theme also in our sessions, this communication really to the citizens and the risk awareness, which is one of the disaster resilience goals too, the 5 goals that Europe has set as a way to look at things. A second picture that I hope you've seen already. I've presented it several times already in similar context, but it is climate change. Climate change is very clearly there. What this is a Pisa study where in the GRC we looked at the consequences in different areas. Each slice of the cake is floods, droughts, river floods, welfare, etc. The consequences in case we don't do anything or we manage to do things. Now, this helped define the climate change adaptation strategy of the European Union, which was developed in 2021. And evidence like this helps paint a picture and mobilize, of course, on the action. But what we learned too is that these slices are not separate, and you cannot look at droughts without looking at floods, and you need to have an integrated way of looking at water, an integrated way of looking at the economic side of things, and everything is connected now. So this term of systemic risk is very important, and I hope it's not a new term. We had it in our last summer school. There was a master class on systemic risk. So it's a concept that we see more and more coming in discussions, and it's, of course, very important. A third picture is the one on the earthquake in Turkey. This was a recent disaster. We don't have Turkish colleagues here, I think, even if they're part of their participating state. But there was a lot of work that, again, the team of Marcia, who's sitting there, the team leader of the crisis group in my unit, was doing on this, immediately in the response. But again, I put this here because this was work of not just earthquake specialists. It brings together work of many, many others. In this case, for example, this was on the border with Syria, and in Syria there's an ongoing conflict, and the whole issue with internally displaced people or refugees complicated the whole situation, and this is something to consider. Also, right after the event, we started a reflection in the GRC, and the GRC is a nice organization because we have many disciplines. Almost all disciplines are present, so we can work with other colleagues to see what they know, what their perspective is. Economists, for instance, what is the impact of this? But also the geopolitics. First of all, was the secondary effects. Maybe there's other earthquakes coming, there's a drought ongoing, then there were floods, the things were piling up, and we needed to anticipate what happened there. But then you also have the elections, of course. The elections that would happen, and that happened this weekend, and they're finished now. But this had the potential of making the whole response more complicated. There could be tensions, et cetera, et cetera. So disaster risk management is always done in a context of geopolitical tensions, et cetera. So it's important to consider that too in what we're doing. So bringing this in the picture, the geopolitics, understanding the conflict risk, the peace building is something we do a lot, not so much in the European context, but definitely in the global context. In the humanitarian sector. Now, the inform products, for example, there's a risk index that brings in the conflict side and the natural hazard side, looking at all the possible impacts. So it's important to build bridges between all these parts. Now, the GRC, our strategy for the moment is to address two parts, and always in the sense of more integration and more working together. Early warning systems obviously remain one of the key things where science can make a difference. But like the Copernicus Emergency Management System, which is run in our unit, so that is always being improved. But also linking it to health. We're working on the epidemic system and linking to nuclear technology, technological risk, etc. It's very important to work with colleagues from other departments to bring this under one hood and at least learn to speak the same language. I mentioned the nexus conflict climate humanitarian, which is priority for us to work on. On the long term, the same, and the areas we focus on for the moment are working more with regions and cities through you probably know the mission. The mission for climate change adaptation is a big research investment of the EU. If you don't know about it, it's probably very interesting to read up about it, because that's where the regions and the cities are active and may benefit directly from research. Humanitarians and peace building with the informed climate change or global conflict risk index are key tools that bring these worlds together. And the financial sector, there will be a masterclass on economics too. It is, of course, of crucial importance to understand how the money comes in this picture, and that's also something we do. And foresight, what will be the next? Maybe you've seen this picture of the different tsunamis coming. You know, the first tsunami is COVID, and then behind COVID is another tsunami you cannot see, but it is the recession. The recession is coming, and behind that there's another tsunami that is even higher, but you cannot see it because the COVID wave is there, and it's climate change. And then behind that one is actually biodiversity, and this was mentioned before by you also. And also at the GRC, we are really looking at the biodiversity as really a threat, and maybe the links with emergency management are not so far. We work mostly for EU policy, but EU policy is of course relevant to national policy. And for instance, you know for sure some of these things, the adaptation strategy, where our risk data hub is quite important, the space regulation that governs how Copernicus is further developed, the UCP with the Knowledge Network, which was a massive change in there, but also like forest strategy. Land management in the end is civil protection, if you see it in the long term. So that's very important to be engaged and participate in those type of conversations. The disaster resilience goals, you know, for sure, and the Sendai midterm review recently passed. So it's just a selection of a certain number of things that are on the radar and that are very important. In the end, my message is to, and for the summer school here, is to look at integration, anticipation, and impact as a way we can really work together, and what should be the role between science and policy. Because things are changing, for sure we will see more of these extremes. So situational awareness, always making it better is one of the challenges. And then try to accelerate what needs to change in terms of prevention and building more resilience, the societal transformation. Maybe we will have new contacts between us that can help accelerate things in certain areas, and that is really the point. So after this, I hope we can really keep contact with all of you as ambassadors for this, of connecting with others in your country. And for sure, you can count on us as a Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center or the science pillar of the Knowledge Network to help you with staying in contact with other people and to help you bring this message further. Thank you, and I wish you a very, very exciting summer school, because the master classes will be really, really interesting.
Thank you very much, Tom. Conscious of the time and the fact that Professor Carrozza unfortunately will have to leave us after the coffee break, we have a proposal that the professor will make herself available for any questions, comments, engagement during the coffee break. The entire 30 minutes, she's all yours. But before this, exactly. But before that, I actually have one question I would like to address, if you permit. You mentioned at the very beginning that being between science and politics requires a lot of balance and certain set of skills. And if that's not too sensitive to ask, perhaps if you could share a little bit more, what's your recipe for success in this respect, other than being a physicist?
Okay. Being between science and politics require balance, and also require a lot of skill in order to avoid conflict of interest. So you always must be aware that people think that you are in conflict, and you are putting your intention and your interest before the interest of the others. So first of all, you must be very, very fair in being out of any conflict of interest, but also perceived conflict of interest, which is much more fruitful. So this is the first point, because you have to act for the public interest, and nobody must question this. And this requires that you put yourself behind the others. So you are the last. And first you have to make the interest of the organization where you are working. And this must be clear. Second point, I think, to be able to leave organizational situation. For example, I was a member of the parliament, but after being member of the parliament, I closed this connection to the parliament and decided to go back to science. And this was really something very, very difficult, because you have to enter in a new life. So when you enter in a new life, no nostalgia, okay? We say in Italian, for the previous life. You are in a new life, and you have to act with the rules of the new life, which are different from the rules of the previous life. So it is something that requires a lot of balance. And when you are, it is much more difficult, for example, for Fabrizio Curcio. He is head of the civil protection, and he has to make the right decision, even to be a little bit tough with the, for example, with the research institutions. They want to be more main character to be part of the scheme, but where you are in emergency, you must do the right thing, and you must be aware that you are acting in the public benefit. So when people want to be more involved or more engaged, have more space, in that case, you have to say, okay, we are in emergency. You have to be to make a sort of step behind, and this is very difficult. So it's critical to be part of that, because the people always look for being more in power, and decision making when there is an emergency requires to be not in power, but to be part of the network, and to act for the others, not to act for yourself. And so this is a special skill, I think. I don't know if I responded to the question, but
you most certainly did. I think everyone can find some little wisdom for themselves there. Thank you very much. So, Tom, we continue the discussion after the coffee break. There's a special slot for that. Before I set you free for the coffee break, there's one little announcement. One of the participants cannot locate their mobile phone. So if any of you have two in your pockets, perhaps, or found a spare one lying around, please let us know so that we can solve the problem. Thank you very much. We meet in half an hour, sharply at 4, 20 minutes. Okay. 10 to 4, back in here. The coffee break is at the courtyard as we were before. Thank you very much.
ciao.
Yeah. Yeah,
Dopo mi avevate dato delle date, ma io faccio un'altra iterazione e poi vi vengo a spiegare. No, però
I'm ready for us.
comunque dici tutto, ma dimmi tu per quella cosa. Va bene, ciao, buone.
Thank you very much.
Sì, sì. Várias forças.
Sì, direi che sto per fare.
Vai, vai.
No, no, sai, ho un questo, sono partecipante nel. Infatti queste cose che mi perché quando ho fatto quel tipo di musica, a vedere che interromperà la condivisione.
Sì, ora si fai,
Ah, ok, e io faccio quindi.
fare Sì, dai, comunque siamo qua in due, se poi c'è qualcosa vengo. Ma tu vai giù sulla sedia così non ti si vede.
E poi lì. Ok.
Io non sto. Chiuditi dentro. Aspetta che prendo anche. Quanto che questo lo ripetiamo.
Sì, perché io non devo andare lì, ma
Un po' pericoloso qua. Questo è quello che aveva mandato lui.
il primo.
Sì. Qua delle cose copiato dalla mail, quello che era.
Ma poi c'è una cosa.
Ok. Sì, questo poi lui non l'aveva aggiornato il file di Word.
Sì.
Sì, vabbè, mi rendi bene. Poi c'era il piano qua, se si da qualcosa. Vabbè, facciamo un finta pausa.
I'm speaking from here.
Okay. Yes, yes, I understand. It's quite.
Yes, wait a second, because now they will choose, they will change, now they.
Yeah. Yeah. I will not touch anything.
You might go back again.
When
When answer.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Let's stand there.
I can. If you see when you can walk, more tendons. Okay, I'll start in 1 minute. When the dog will do. Dear colleagues, in conscious of the time, that our dear Italian colleagues have put up a very comprehensive agenda, and we know that some people are still outside and coming in, but we would like to start Mr. Professor Rolf Liskok's presentation, a keynote speech from the Örebro University. And now, as a Finnish person, I can apologize to the Swedes already for the pronunciation of his name. And the professor will be talking to us about the overview of the current debate regarding science policy interface. And again, as fellow Finno-Scandinavians, we agreed that there won't be a more bio than that from the professor. He can introduce himself. Please, if I can have applause for Professor.
So, thank you for inviting us to this conference, to this summer school. It's a great honor, and I'm so impressed about the very qualified program that you will have these days. I wish, I'm a bit jealous, I wish that in my own training I had the opportunity to take part in this kind of educational exercise. And I'm Rolf Lidskog. I work since more than 20 years back at the University as a professor in environmental sociology. In all my academic life studied the role of expertise, public trust, and risk evaluations. And I've done it in rather various fields. It's nuclear waste management, air pollution, forest storms and forest fires, urban crime prevention, climate change, and biodiversity loss. And my task is to give an overview of the policy science in place. And it is really challenging and complicated. It's not easy to give a picture of such a broad field, but that involves so many discussions. I have to make some hard choices about what to present, and I try to include aspects that are relevant for tomorrow's master classes. And this is my outline of the speech. First, I will say something about the current situation, where science is both requested but also contested. Thereafter, I present two general models of science policy relations and science policy production. And thirdly, I will stress three aspects of the importance of making knowledge to move between different fields. And I will end by presenting and discussing four topics that are central in the current science discussion. We have seen a dramatical scientization of society. Almost all parts of social life are influenced by and dependent on expert systems. We have also seen that through mass education, we have a broad public appetite of scientific thinking. At the same time, science was increasingly separated from society and from our understanding. Much research takes place in closed rooms, removed from public consideration and policy making, such in case of artificial intelligence. But many times it's not sufficient to only open up these rooms, because if they open up, we nevertheless will not understand what is going on. Even amongst the scientific community, it's only a slight share of the scientists that understand other things than oil. To a large extent, what we know about scientific development is mediated through non-scientific actors, not least media and social media. We have also a dramatic increase in expert organization and knowledge brokers that help to guide us about what is taking place and what knowledge there exists. And we also have the plentiful of advices given by non-experts, not least on blogs and social media. This scientization of society has made expertise requested. Almost all public and political issues have components that need science to utilize. But science is also contested. Sometimes because of science is not only solvable a problem, but it's also a problem. There are good reasons to be critical, to have a critical attitude towards science. But populism and denial is something completely different. It spreads doubts and skepticism towards expert knowledge and evidence-based actions. And I will come back to that. But how do science and policy relate to each other in this complex landscape? I may present two dominant models of or understanding of how science and policy are made already. The starting point for the linear model is that science policy are different social domains or spheres, which are characterized by different logics and objectives. Science produces knowledge through institutionalized ways that guides its practices, whereas policy tries to solve problems, not least when there is different interests at play. This simplified model and of course being qualified and more complicated. But it is characterized nevertheless that science and policy are separated, where science speaks truth to power. This slide shows a recent example where science provides the basis for rational decision making. And here is another example where the author explains how scientists can influence policymakers in the US. The assumption here is that science can deliver neutral, objective, and certain knowledge, but then should guide policymakers. This is a view that has been common, not least in earlier risk communication theory. And Barry Fisher have nicely summarized the early development of risk communication in steps. First, we should tell people the numbers. Give the numbers, then we should tell them if that is not sufficient, we have to explain what it means, to show that they have accepted similar risks in the past, and show that we would for them. And lastly, we have to tie them nicely and make them as important. So according to this model, the linear model, when science is fully used by policy, it is because science and policy have not been kept apart. To be first scientific consensus and then science publication. Or that science has not been made usable, understandable for policymakers. Or that there are lack of mechanisms of knowledge transfer. There's also an inverted version of this model. It's when policy influences science. And here we have a comics about that. Policy can direct science, or at least uses science in line with its own political interest. And the French philosopher Michel Foucault is probably the most well-known in this perspective, stressing that knowledge is power, and the modern techniques of governance have shaped the production of knowledge. The policy directly redirect knowledge. But it also more in practical terms, Charles Weiss has shown that research is often deployed in an instrumental way by policymakers, either to support a given policy preference or to delay policy. The other model is called the co-production model. It's understand the relationship with this verb as not separated but interdependent. It agrees that scientific knowledge many times underpins our knowledge of social and political problems and how to handle them. But it also stresses that our social order are at the same time influencing what knowledge we develop and find important, valid, and relevant. In short, science and policy and the relation are embedded in a wider society which influence both spheres. This means that co-production is so much more than co-design, or that science and business policymaking collaborate. Instead, it claims that the epistemic part, the knowledge part, and the normative aspect, the value part, are always independent, even when we don't consider it or evaluate. So in contrast to the linear model, the co-production model says that the problem is that science and policy are studied as separate activities. And that results in, for example, that it's so easy that we put too much stress on trying to achieve internal consensus, scientific consensus, or scientific transparency, and too little focus on the codependency of science and society. What makes knowledge to move, to transfer from different domains? I will here present three crucial aspects of making science relevant for policymaking: usefulness or relevance and usability, network and culture. Concerning usability or usable knowledge, TREL is a well-known acronym or often used acronym for what makes science knowledge usable. Credibility means that knowledge claims are believed to be accurate, that they are created through a deliberative process by people widely regarded as experts. Relevance means that the information is timely and is organized on a politically meaningful time scale and scale of resolution. And legitimacy means that knowledge is developed by people who have social authority and that it is accepted by people outside the community that they live in. Besides this, there are also other aspects that are stressed, like applicability, that it should be easy to access, and so on. But this is quite well understood. Concerning networks, rule of two, anthropologist, is one of the most well-known scientists that stress that network is what makes knowledge to travel. In his actor network theory, network is even more central than actors. Without networks, no actors and knowledge will have an actual and no possibility to influence social settings. So it's networks that enables knowledge to travel, but it also implies that whereas some knowledge travels, others don't, others doesn't do it because they are not part or that have not access to that network. Latour also stressed that when knowledge travels, it also changes. Actors need to reinterpret knowledge to make it matter for them. So this is done through social translation, where scientific facts become societal truth. That means knowledge that is taken for granted, that we believe is true. The implication of this is that users' beliefs, preferences, and interests are not hindrance and obstacles, but instead the prerequisite to make knowledge relevant and usable. And the particular problem here is how much an original science will be reinterpreted and still be seen as a valid from a scientific perspective. Culture. That's the third concept. Sheila Jasanoff, American science studies researcher, has stressed that culture is that makes knowledge to move, and it makes it by making it credible and relevant. And she has in several studies found that the credibility landscape shifts considerably when science leaves the laboratory and goes public. This means that internal consensus and transparency and scientific validity are not sufficient for achieving credibility and for making knowledge to move. Instead, those who speak for science need to be culture sensitive because they visit different interpretative contexts, which the quotation here stresses. Jasanoff has also coined another concept, civic epistemology. She raises here the question, why are there striking national differences in political and public controversies over global issues such as climate change or genetically modified crops? It's the same scientific message, the same science, and it's spread globally. But nevertheless, they are so taken differently in different nations. And this is also the case in rather similar countries. So Jasanoff finds a different national answer to questions such as what holds as a valid reason? What holds as a legitimate accountability mechanism? Which method should be used for solving scientific disputes? And the reason for this is that nation states have different ways of producing and evaluating knowledge and to make decisions in controversial issues. And this is, from a pedagogical perspective, I shouldn't show this slide, but you have it afterwards in the presentation. It's too complicated. But this is a table that summarizes, and Sheila Jasanoff analyzes why is biotechnology so differently handled in Europe and North America. And here she shows the difference between the US, Britain, and Germany concerning how they evaluate knowledge on technology. And I cannot go into detail here in her analysis, but she claiming that there are different national systems for how resolving technical and scientific and social disputes. And this findings points to the importance of what's called stage management. Stage management is a concept from classical social psychology, or even employed by social psychologist named, his name is Irving Goffman. And that concept is developed in our everyday practices. And he finds that in our professional life, when we are public, we consider rather much how we present ourselves and how we behave. This in order to create a good image of us, and respectful and trustful image of our work. But in our private life, at backstage, you behave differently and you are more relaxed in our way to behave and to present ourselves to our partner or colleagues or friends. These concepts have been transferred to the scientific arena when science and policy meets. And an American science studies researcher, Stephen Hilgarten, used it to understand what does expertise done when meeting in the public arena, when they choose to what to put in public. We are concerned about what to present in a particular social setting, what kind of message, what kind of image of science would we like to present when presenting for country, for region, for locality, or for particular target group. And here we need to be cultural sensitive. Who am I talking to? And who am I? And who do others perceive me to be? Backstage, in the research laboratory, at the research center, or in the expert organization, happens a lot, which are not made public and maybe not be necessary to put in public. So we discuss maybe failed experiment, scientific cheating, badly used methods, and things like that. But at this backstage. So what Jason stress and Hilgarten also about is that science is made influential in particular context, but staging itself in line with existing design or desirable culture. Based in the current discussion within the field and these 6 master classes that you will take part of tomorrow, I have selected 4 different concepts to briefly say something about. Expertise, risk, uncertainty, and trust. When reading the description of all these 6 master classes, I find that they are all relevant to understand what will take place tomorrow and what the challenges are. I start with expertise. The first topic is expertise. And this is a crucial topic for this summer school. What constitutes expertise and what challenges does it face? Well, expertise, that is a social position based on competence, that you have knowledge and skill, recognition, that you are known, request that someone see your competence and expertise relevant and ask for it, that it's understandable, comprehensive, and that it's trusted both by your peers, your colleagues, the field which you have your expert competence in, but also by those who listen to you or would like to get your advice. This table shows a rather simple way to understand some of the challenges for expertise. As you see, the upper quadrant to the left is quite unproblematic. You are recognized and you are competent. And the lower to the right is also, you have not the competence but are not asked for at all. More problematic is to the left, to the bottom left, where a person, organization, or a agency has expertise, but are not asked for, are silenced, or are not allowed to speak, or have no ways, networks to use. And very problematic is that to the upper right, where a person or organization that are incompetent for an issue, nevertheless takes an expert role. I guess that you all had plentiful of example of this case. And you also have them. And it is also a risk, I can say for yourself, if you have expert knowledge in one field, maybe person or organization around you start to ask questions about other things than your own area. And you start to answer on that, these areas too. And suddenly you have moved more towards this position. About this problem being recognized but incompetent. A particular problem is this organized denials. I think that 20 years ago we didn't discuss it in science studies, but again it's a great problem. How to handle all kind of advices that flourish, not least on the net. And studies, not least in the US, have found that there has been a shift from defending a particular product for being, for example, good for health or good for environment, to more general aspects of science. And they also found that this discussion is not taken with scientists. They ignore scientists, but instead directly to stakeholders, target groups, public, policymakers, not least through social media. It tries to delegitimize expertise by saying that it's not scientific, or it hides controversies, and it's not valid knowledge. It also uses counter expertise, often quite low competence. Maybe they have a PhD, but another field, and use them as a counter claiming that this is also valid knowledge, but it's silenced by established science and by peer-reviewed journals and by the University of Sweden. So one important challenge is how to make this to move according to the arrows, to try to minimize the role for incompetent but recognized experts, and also making competent experts to be recognized. The second topic is risk, which also is central to this summer school. 5 years after the Chernobyl accident, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Hans Blix, stated this: the future of nuclear power depends essentially on two factors: how well and how safely it actually performs, and how well and how safely it is perceived to perform. I think it's a very good analysis. How it actually performs and how it's perceived to perform. This quotation points that risk is much more than numbers and quantitative risk assessment and risk estimations. We have also that, which this photo explains, it's probably two persons that have been at an IKEA shop and found that it was a very cheap price on a bed. And then they recognized that they had nothing to fix it on the roof, on the car. So instead, as you see, the driver uses his left hand and the passenger uses his or her right hand, and then they drive. And this raises the question: who is the risk taken and who is the risk here? What happens if they lose the grips? So risk, how to define what is a risk and by whom, which consequences should be included, for whom or for what, and for what. And also this about primary and secondary risk. Risk governance points that it is not enough to have an internal focus on how to manage risk, but also an external focus needed on how its action will be perceived by others and how it will affect the reputation of an organization or a company and the trustworthiness. This is secondaries next to Hans Blix. It's both the actual performance, but also how it's perceived. The third slide. Uncertainty, which is a concept closely related to that risk. In 2011, I visited New Orleans to study the work after the Katrina hurricane. When strolling in the city, I found these signs. First, I didn't read them, I just passed them. But after seeing rather many of them, I stopped and read. This sign informed that here has a crime been made. In this case, a woman has 10th of May 2010 been strangled. So that is a couple of places in New Orleans. It was 12 years ago. I must say I was rather perplexed by this information. What is aimed by giving this information? I guess most of us will be uncertain about how to interpret this message and what should we do about this message. Uncertainty is often used rather well, but one way to deal with it is to think that it has different dimensions, and it's important to include all these dimensions. Cognitive uncertainty means that we have insufficient or uncertain knowledge. Strategic uncertainty means that we may have the knowledge about performance of the technical system and so on, but we don't really know what actions others will take. How will other actors interpret and respond to my decision and action? For example, how will others understand this sign about the crime has been made here at this particular place? Institutional uncertainty means that we have fragmented decision making. We have multi-level, multi-actor decision making. I guess that you, when you're discussing crisis management, you will all face that it's so complicated to coordinate all actors and institutions. And normative means that there are different values, and it's not. This absence of shared values, and it's making it hard to prioritize between different objectives and different goals. I have done some research on climate change and biodiversity loss, and sometimes there are measures that may be good for the climate change issue, but bad from a biodiversity perspective. And how to handle that. That's an example of a normative uncertainty. Or trust. Trust is in fact one of the most important features of expertise. Without trust, organizations have an uphill battle to be listened to and believed. Trust can be directed towards person, organizations, or systems. This slide shows a car owner having great distrust on the technical system of the car, and instead put great trust in his own, I believe it's about that, in his own measure for how to make it hard to steal the car. Trust is future-oriented, whereas its sibling concept, confidence, is based on experience and known circumstances. Trust concerns lack of experience and knowledge. If you have full knowledge and certain knowledge, you don't need to trust. So trust is needed when you don't have full information or lack of competence how to think and act in a particular situation. Then you must trust others. It may be a person, an organization, or a system. And you must And you must trust them that they will know better than you what's the best food. But you can never be certain, because trust is a leap of faith. But this leap can be nevertheless be more or less reasonable. In many situations, trust is not towards a specific advice or recommendation, but towards the person or organization that delivers this recommendation. People rarely trust single facts, but institutions that delivers them. This means that the key question often is whether I consider a person or organization worthy of my trust. That's called institutional trustworthiness. And it is one of the most important currency for an expert organization. We trust. And to trust means also that it's important to distrust. Because to trust an expert advice, an organization or system means at the same time that other organizations are less trusted or even in some cases mistrust. So, to wrap up what I presented, we live in a complex society, extremely dependent on expert system, where there's much need of evidence-based policies and social robust decision making. I've shown two different models of understanding the science-policy relation: the linear model, that's separated science and policy, and then communicate when science is, well, it should be communicated, or the crude production model that sees them as intertwined, which don't claim the work for internal consensus, instead stresses the importance of social translation of knowledge. I've stressed the importance to formulate knowledge in a usable way, but also the importance of networks that are built ways to make knowledge be traveled. I also stress the need of cultural sensitivity, because when science goes public, the credibility landscape changes. There are different civic epistemologies at work on national level, but also maybe between different sectors within the same nation. Last, I've stressed it's important to reflect on what is important, what counts as expertise, and how it can counteract expertise that is not based on competence. That risks are much more than numbers, and it's important for different actors define, measure, and act upon this. To see uncertainty as multidimensional, and that it involves much more than uncertainty about a particular phenomenon, but it involves perceptions, institution, and values. And lastly, to understand that trust is a pivotal term for expertise. Without trust, no expertise. But this, I conclude, and wishing you very interesting and learning days in summer school. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor. If there's something I really liked in your presentation was the quote, science is like a bumbling tourist in a strange land. So I guess we all go to the Pisa Tower. This event can be stopped right now and we'll find science of it. We'll have a very short technical break now as we start the discussion panel. May I invite Tom back to the discussion panel, as well as our new replacement for Mr. Curcio, Daniela Di Bucci. And also Luca and Chiara to handle the interactive part about it. And congratulations, you have survived the most official part of the day, and we will start moving into more interactivity. We'll be using Slido, so please take out your mobile phones or smart devices or iPads or whichever you would like to use, except the one that lost it and I assume has not found it again. I will go through shortly, in conscious of the time, that what we will be doing, and I already apologize fully on my behalf if there are technical difficulties, since we tested it once this morning, but yeah, not totally sure if it will work like 100%. So if someone doesn't know how Slido works, you can join it in a moment when we get the QR code over there. You can scan the QR code and join the Slido panel. Or you can use the slido.com on the screen and just type the PIN code over there and you will join. Note, if it's not going to be anonymous, so if you want to stay anonymous, please put a silly nickname like Civil Protection Master 88 or something like that. So we will have a few warm-up questions, really hard ones first, and then we'll be moving a bit more into relevant ones. We'll ask a little bit about you guys too, like what is your background or what are your expectations about the event, and later on, time permitting, we will move into a live Q&A facilitated by Slido too, because as much as we have been assured that the acoustics are near perfect over here, but it might still be hard to hear from the back. And Andreas, if I may kindly also ask you if you're running out of time and people need to head to the guided tour as well. Cut it. Okay, we have quite a lot of participants already. I think we can move to the first quiz. And if you don't get this right, there's going to be like 5 questions or something. If you don't get this right, you will be kicked out from the school immediately. So, but and I hope you can see all the way into the back too. So the first question is, what are testaroli? And there's 3 options: a football fan club in Pisa, small mammals that you can find in Tuscany's roots, or a typical pasta dish from Tuscany. And since this is the hardest one, we'll give you a few seconds to reply. 42 at the moment, 44. 9. Okay, thrice, second, once. No Googling. You'll be also kicked out if you Google. Okay, 64. Let's look at the results. Oh. I am quite amazed of you. Can the 4 and 7% raise their hands so you can leave immediately? No, so the right answer is typical pasta dish from Tuscany. Congratulations, who got that? Now we can move to the next one, please. Look up. This will also be a bit relevant for you in the masterclass and in the scenarios, and surprised me out of my mind. You can already see from the context how big these are, but what is the population of the city of Pisa, not the region of Pisa? And options are 60, 90, and 140,000. It's the size of my hometown, if anyone wants a tip. Okay, we have 67, 64, so we can go to the next one. Pretty good, but now 36% and 7% got kicked out at this point. So the right answer is around 90,000. Someone has been reading Wikipedia on their flight. Let's go to the next question, please. Oh yes, we are. That's why we were saying that we have please be anonymous, but I have this person might be Italian and might be from Pisa. Okay. Next one. Well, it's okay. Okay, it's okay if it's there. No worries about it. I take full responsibility of any difficulties. So we already asked you some of you in the registration form, but do you consider yourself a scientist, policymaker? And now we have added a new one, hybrid expert. And as we heard from Curzio, he loves it, and we still don't know fully what it is. But if you identify yourself as a hybrid expert, you can also answer. But somewhere in between two. And we have 70. So it's quite interesting. I think in the registration phase we have 50-50 between policymaker and scientist, but now it's still 50-50 between policymaker and scientist, but 59 consider them some level of hybrid experts. So those running the masterclass on hybrid experts, no pressure. Okay, we can move to the next one again. And now this will be a word cloud, so you can answer in free text. And we would like to know, what do you expect from the summer school? Please no novella, few words. What are your main expectations coming to mind immediately? 25 participants typing already. Those who are not typing, hurry up. We have a guided tour to get. So the first things that pop to your mind, what are you expecting? Can be a few words only. Let's wait for, yes, on the right. Let's wait for 40 to come up, and you can still answer at that point. Okay, okay. My dear boss will be happy that knowledge network is which is our team's name, is the two most jumping acronym there. But there's also networking, sharing, new knowledge. I like the one who said fun, or the, I don't know how many said fun. It says useful knowledge. Okay, someone even wants useful knowledge, not only knowledge. New ideas, learn, meet, ideas, testaroli. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes. We can find funding for the next 10 years with this one. So. Okay, so whoever hasn't yet, right? I'm sorry, but we'll have to move on. Next one, please. Can I look up? Now we move into a bit more relevant ones. So I think you heard like 50 acronyms in the morning at least. For some of you, they might not all be totally relevant. And also, there was EU member states mentioned. I think the majority will be from EU member states but over here. But just so you know, also the event was open for union civil protection mechanism participating states. So that is more than the EU. And here we are asking you, in addition to the EU member states, how many more UCPM participating states there are. Options are 9, 12, and 6. 69, 63. I think we can do results. And 63% got it right. It used to be 8 a month ago until Ukraine joined. 12 is too much. Again, I apologize. You have to leave the event now. Okay, you should go back. Yes, it's okay. Yes. So just be aware that it's not only EU member states here, and we have also international organization partners here, and we will be likely discussing along the road too about UCPM participating states too. You can find the list online. I'm not gonna go through it now, and I wouldn't even remember it without Googling. Just be mindful. Next one, please. Again, a bit more relevant. Which disaster type occurred the most in the world in 2022, according to the MDAT database? So I don't remember how the acronym goes, but it's managed by a university in Belgium, and it's considered one of the most authoritative databases on disaster recording or disaster statistics. Options are floods, storms, and wildfire. And interesting, the correct answer is floods. So 51% correct, right? And I know we can discuss till the end of time, like how do you differentiate these, and the database gets a bit of critique on it. How do you differentiate these? But yes, floods are usually the most occurring along the trend in the world as an occurrence. Wildfire, I guess, is in many people's mind at the moment due to what is happening in Europe at the moment. But nevertheless, let's go to the next. Okay, this can be a tricky one. This might be, I'm hoping that not everybody gets right. So this is referencing the floods that happened last week in the region up north from the Toscana, Emilia-Romagna. So which country's high-capacity pumping modules arrived on 22nd May to support the flood response in Emilia-Romagna from the European Civil Protection Pool? So these are coming from the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, and Italy asked for assistance from the mechanism and the pool to support in the flood response. And if someone doesn't know, the high-capacity pumping module is basically a big truck with a big pump. Options are France and Slovakia and Slovenia, and France and Slovenia. So 2 of these arrived on 22nd May. I apologize to those who are from Belgium because they arrived a bit later than that, but Belgians are also in the area. But the 69 has answered, so let's look at the results. Actually, I think it was Slovakia and Slovenia was the right answer. Yes, at least I remember it correctly. I bet most of you answered France and Slovenia, that they are the closest ones to Italy, but it was Slovakia and Slovenia who arrived on 22nd May, and France I'm sorry I make silly jokes, but France being France arrived 1 day later, and Belgium being Belgium arrived even later. But okay. Yes, I quickly opened my own. Next one, please. Helen won this one. I don't know if it's only for this one or if it's for all of them, but and I think well, we don't need to boast that somehow. And after this, we will be moving to the live Q&A. So already start prepping your questions. Before we go through this, I'll explain to you that you can put questions in the back and they can be voted on. So start prepping your questions for the panel over here. But this will likely also be a good starting question for our panelists, how they will solve our issues. So what do you, dear participants, think will be the most challenging aspect? Is the most challenging aspect in creating or using evidence for policy making? I mean, in your life, in your career. Of course, you can answer objectively too, but. And we can wait with this a bit longer. So I think it's quite a pertinent. Oh, we can now keep it there, but this will also, I think, I invite the masterclass trainers to amend totally their plans. If you're not gonna focus on this, but I think this is good to also focus on in your tomorrow's masterclasses. Didn't you mention something like trust? Yeah, we can wait a bit longer about it. And of course, it's not a scientific exercise anymore because there's bias and you're going to copy whatever is. So trust is seeming to be the most challenging aspect in creating that. So there's an interesting already time over there because I guess the equation often goes that the trust takes time. Communication, I think, also takes time. If I read a couple of, okay, who wrote wine? How is that a challenge, first of all? So, trust in data, accountability, radical actions, political buying, egos. Yeah. To keep it simple, that's like a very interesting point. I think also a reference in the professor's presentation that standardization is often very good in these things. We have 63 now. Knowledge resistance. There's a new buzzword over there. I think there's going to be a new paper or a new policy coming up on policy knowledge resistance. Very also interesting. There's a law mentioned over there. Since you know there's going to be one masterclass on law as well. 64. I think we will move on to the next one, which is the live Q&A. So again, you can put questions over there. If you put a silly nickname, you will be anonymous. If you didn't, you are not. So bear that in mind. We ask kindly no profanities, no stupid questions. That's on there. And I apologize, there's a test since it wouldn't work without a test. But while you are typing your questions to the panelists over there, and you can vote on other people's questions. As you know, someone has already voted 2 times Lucas' best question. So they will go up and I will choose over here questions to go to the panelists. But while we wait for you guys to put up your questions over there, I might warm up with our panelists by asking, what is your opinion about the last word cloud we had over there? Our participants identify trust as the biggest challenge in generating or using evidence for policy making. Tom is already nodding there over, so I think I will let you answer.
Yeah, I think in the end it's not surprising. It's very important to have a good established relation. It works all much better if you have an established relationship between a scientific or a technical organization and somebody who needs to make decisions now. And that's why it's always so difficult in a crisis normally, because a crisis is maybe a situation you are not expecting. And at least those are the most difficult ones, no? If it's a well-known situation for which you are trained and you know who your counterparts are, things are quite under control. You can manage, you know, the people. But if it's not the case, then you have to work with people you don't know really. Then the transactional cost in the end, the way of getting a new piece of knowledge or giving it is much higher, because first you need to know, is it the right person? Can I trust it? Is it relevant, et cetera, et cetera. And that is typical then in a crisis situation, you know, where the importance of delivering it in a good way, yeah, it's very important. And I think it's something that can be learned to work in such an environment. Often when you bring in maybe experts that do not have an exposure to the science policy interface, the way things are presented are perhaps not always, you know, if with some more experience, you would do it differently. You would focus more perhaps on key outcomes or on what is relevant for a decision rather than the details of the uncertainty. And there's many ways you can do it in a wrong way. But it is definitely a skill to be learned, and that you can learn, I think.
Thank you, Tom. Hopefully we can all learn that. Daniela, we took you out of the blue for this, but your boss is now away, so you can speak freely. But what do you think about what Tom discussed over there? Is trust the biggest challenge, and I would handle it?
Yeah, following what's already said, I think that about trust, in my experience as a part of a public administration, is that it's very difficult and long and time-consuming to build trust, and it's very easy to damage it very quickly. So especially, I appreciated very much the presentation just done about how some ideas can be used purposely to build distrust or damage trust of some institution that brings ideas that you do not agree with. So I think that an important effort that the community as a whole can do is to try to identify if there is some action that is done purposely to destroy trust in an administration or a research institution or an academy that is working for the common good, let's say, because this is a damage for all the community, and it's a great loss in case of management or for instance, of an emergency or something like this.
Thank you. And I apologize to Daniela that I forgot to introduce you, but so Daniela works for the Italian Civil Protection Department, and I think among this panel, she identifies the most as a hybrid expert working between science and policy. Professor, maybe you'd like to elaborate more on your presentation, and very interesting points that I think were raised. It is very time consuming, but what Daniela also said, that it's easily destroyed. But if you want to elaborate more on the presentation.
I agree what you have said, that when taking part of US studies after disaster, one finding is that if people only are talked to but not listened to, it creates distrust. And they have a sentence saying, outsiders don't understand, as summarizing this one. And I think that you point out that maybe an expert could be very good in the knowing the figures, the facts, and what happened. But if you don't really have this kind of cultural sensitivity and understand how the situation understood for those in the situation, then of course it's much harder to communicate and to give advice, or not to give advice, but to give advice that are acted upon. And I think a general problem is that trust takes time to build, and if it hasn't been built and then we are in a situation of crisis, there's no time to build it. So we really have to be very long term in our work to create trust. And that, I mean, I'm a scientist, and I so
it's so important that we start. It's really hard to find this kind of long-term trust and achieve that. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Now we will go democratically to the top question over there. So, dear panelists, how and how much is AI used for decision making? This is a very, very hot question. I'll leave it at that. Maybe we can go with the same order. Tom, how much is AI used, for example, in the GRC? You're smiling already, so it's going to be a long one.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a difficult question. I don't know if the leading question there is whether AIs make the decision or not, but I don't think at all this is the case. But AI obviously is around, and now it came since November very much in the picture with ChatGPT, and there's these language models that can do a lot. But before that, it was used a lot, of course, in many different ways. And I don't think it makes decisions, but it's definitely a tool that can help make systems better and get more out of the information that you have. No, that it's a tool that helps analysts, scientists to do the work better. For example, you can calibrate certain models much better by using AI. We're using AI to try to push everything we can out of the forecasting of droughts. No, there's a lot of data, and you look at seasonal forecasting, and AI can help to get more skill, so predict further in the future on whether droughts will materialize. And in that sense, it is absolutely crucial to have tools that can then help make decisions on preparations or prevention of droughts in the future. These are certain examples. Also, analysis of big data, for instance, from social media, cannot really done without AI. So you use these kind of techniques for that. So that, for instance, in the case of Turkey, we could analyze a lot of that in a much faster way to come to a short number of social media messages with an address where possibly somebody would still be buried, which then can be fed into the system, not as the decision to go and look there, but it's fed in the system of the local emergency managers as one stream of information where maybe something can be done about. So it's always in the background, I think, and more, and that's good.
Thank you, Tom. Daniela, I don't know if you want to respond on this. I've been to your Seismological Institute around the corner, and they have a brand new supercomputer, but I don't know if that's related to AI. So if you want to.
Yeah, I think that artificial intelligence is already deeply in the scientific community. There's a lot of discussion. For instance, if you read Nature or some other important research journals, there are a lot of discussion, and the scientific community already is using this tool. So in general, it's with us, and it's useful. I think that every tool is useful. It depends on how do you use it. The tool is not per se a positive or negative meaning. It's a tool. Concerning the decision making, now at my level, it's at least at national level, we are not using artificial intelligence, but I think that it could be really useful. For instance, we are working on, as you know, on studying which are good practices already there for activities or for cases that each of us should address, for instance, in case of a decision that should be taken. And it would be useful to have such a kind of tool to screen if there are already some information, some practices that could be taken and used very efficiently. So I think that in the future we can use this tool to analyze if there are decisions already taken that could help us in our everyday activity. Yeah.
I think a very interesting point on that decision making is not necessarily AI managed it, but all the modeling behind it. Professor, you didn't mention AI in your presentation at all.
I, in fact, made a test a week ago. I took the the title of our presentation and used ChatGPT just to see what it should include and not. I did include it was about the risk of commercial interest in expert advice and so on. So it was not wrong, but I found it not to be what I find central, but it was not totally wrong. But I didn't mention anything about AI. And I'm not an expert, but AI seems to be a good decisional support, but it is also risky support, and the importance of not only trust, but distrust. We have in one scientific norm is what we call organized skepticism, that we also have to be a bit skeptical when facts and figures are presented. And I think that is a good norm also when dealing with AI, not see it as a completely neutral tool, but also that it has its advantages and disadvantages.
Thank you. I was good that you took off the top question, because I was going to anyway be a dictator and jump to the question that is now on top. So there was a question on emerging risks, I think, with 14 votes, but I think this is far more interesting. How can we overcome the blame games, bad data versus bad science versus stupid decision makers and dumb public? It might be also a very complex question for your ideas on it. How can we avoid the blame game and create trust? Do you have ideas on that?
I have an answer maybe, that's very different from what you, I like very much the lessons by Julio Velasco. I don't know if you know who is. He is a famous volley allenatore. Trainer, let's say. No, it's the city. Yeah, yes, and he usually says to the players, if the ball is not perfect, you don't have to give me in a better way the ball. You have to play the ball that you receive. So this is, we should be part of a team and play the ball in the position that we will find, we receive it without blaming for the play done by our colleagues. So the positive approach is that we can overcome this play game if we understand that we are part of the same team, although playing different roles.
It's quite clear that Daniela is a hybrid expert in this matter. Maybe, Professor, if you want to understand, so Tom has a benefit of thinking.
I can only agree on the question. I mean, we live in a very polarized climate when it's so easy that the discussion become a debate and become a polarized, where we just make scapegoats of each other. And I have no question, no solution more than we are professionals. We are all professionals. And that means that we need to act in a professional way. And then if others don't do it, we nevertheless have to do it. We will try to avoid that kind of blame game, because it's, you know.
Yeah, perhaps 2 comments. One is, yes, about the team playing. No? So there's different actors in, for instance, early warning chains or something. And the important thing is to be trained in the end. Not that everybody knows what the game is, basically. If you don't know what the game is, then maybe, yes, there can be mistakes made, or, you know, you don't react the right way. But that's why it's so important to do exercises and training in this field, to what should you do in case this happens. It's difficult because there's so many things that can happen, and training is a never-ending thing. But of course, it's very important. If you know what can come, then you can react much better. The second aspect I want to mention is risk communication. No, it was brought up several times also in the keynotes. It's very important to communicate in an open and transparent manner about the complex issues. It's all very complex. It's not easy, but good risk communication is, of course, very important to allow everyone in the game to understand what can happen.
And that's a very good segue. We'll ask the top question the last, because it's we can bullet point it a little bit faster, but very good segue to this, what civil protection guru asked over there. The middle question, dear panelists, does the panel think that the lack of common language between scientific and policymakers hinders resilience? And it's a bit already pointing to what we just now discussed. And if yes, I guess it's going to be a yes, but how would you amend it and the common language? Professor, your
I would say not a common language, but there is not, it's not always an understanding of each other's situation and logics. So I think that's quite important. It's similar when scientists said we don't understand why news media just report no findings, but news media has another logics which are not the same as science. And don't we understand that? It's so easy that we misunderstand each other.
Daniela?
Exactly, between scientific and policymakers, we are there's we did a lot. We are still doing a lot of initiatives to reduce the gap in this kind of communication, because there is a problem of lack of common language starting in the different fields of risks. So the experts, scientists that work in flood or this kind of risk have different meanings for the words that are used also for earthquake experts or volcanologists. So the first step is to understand each other. It's clear that we cannot converge in the same, how can I say, vocabulary, but we have to understand what each of us is saying. Otherwise, going toward a multi-risk approach, it will be very difficult to work. And then we should do the second step between decision makers and scientists, taking into account that there is no the right language. There are two different languages. So in this case, as before, we should learn the language of each other. So it's a process of learning and the reciprocal respect of the fields in which we operate, because otherwise there's someone who teaches and someone who has to learn. We have two communities that have to work together.
So.
Yeah, I find it a bit a difficult question because yeah, the language is to speak to each other and to convey maybe a message or something. But resilience is not the result of just one conversation in the end. So common language, yes, but you have to build it every time you meet. I think here in the room, you will sometimes meet between different disciplines. A very enlightening discussion for me was during COVID, when we were modeling the epidemic curves, and we had a conversation with economists that were tasked to look at the quarterly forecasts of the economy. But the language we were using was very difficult. That was both scientific communities, but the language there was very different because time was different. One is on a daily basis, the other is quarters. What we needed really to learn from each other what we were talking about, but that can happen quite quickly. You can learn the language quite well. To another community, it's about storytelling in the end. No, it's about making sure the other party, whether it's citizens or policymakers or whoever, can get the message. But resilience is really a story. It's a big story. It's a big thing you have to construct. I don't know. Sometimes you can talk about planetary boundaries and people would understand what it means. In other terms, you have to see about small actions at local level. What can you do personally? What is my footprint? And these type of things. So it's not so easy as just a language. I think we need very, very good stories and a long engagement with the population and everyone to get to resilience.
It was Civil Protection Guru who asked this. It's a simple question that goes into difficult levels. Last question of the day, which we now brought back up, and we have 1 minute remaining. So I will ask you, what is, in your opinion, the most possible new emerging risk in Europe? That's a very easy one, yeah? You can choose any timeline you want. I'll give you maybe a few seconds more than think about it. And Tom cannot say planetary boundaries anymore because he used it already. And you can only choose one. What keeps you up at night and what comes first to your mind? Professor, you had the most time.
You imagine that we can't handle the climate change.
Climate change. Daniel.
Do you want that I pick among some that are already at the horizon, or something that I have to imagine that is not completely, because
You choose.
I think that nuclear risk is a problem. Yeah.
Tom, no planetary boundaries.
Yeah, what's very important in our unit now is droughts. It's really an hazard that is not completely understood, neither from the drivers or from the long-term forecasting, nor from the impact. And the impacts can be really systemic through the whole society, agriculture, water availability, all these things, salinification and these type of things. But also it will hit Europe from the droughts that are happening more and more outside of Europe. No, we're not the risk bearer and the risk taker in a way. Perhaps it's also relevant in this story that climate change will cause droughts much more outside of Europe, and it will definitely also impact Europe through geopolitical connections and whatever. So that's on our radar.
It's okay. I think you made a very interesting feedback. The last question was, where is the wine? I think you can yourselves go find it. I mean, I'm not gonna do that for you. Yes. Now I will. Do you show the video? You handle the video, yes. We go into the scenario based game. Okay. Thank you to our panelists, all of them.
Okay, so to reflect a bit on the challenges and the issues we've seen so far, we have prepared a short video, actually with the aid of artificial intelligence. So I don't know if artificial intelligence can really help decision making, but certainly to prepare this video. So if Marco can please run the video. Yep. After that, we're going to have one last round of poll and then.
The authorities in Pisa, Italy, have issued a warning about the potential imminent risk of flooding of the Arno River. Heavy rainfall in the surrounding areas has led to a rapid increase in water levels, and the river is now approaching the danger zone. The Arno River runs through Pisa, and flooding could cause severe damage to homes, businesses, and infrastructure in the city. Residents and local authorities are being advised to take all necessary precautions and to closely monitor the situation. Emergency response teams are on high alert and are preparing for the worst-case scenario. Evacuation plans are being put in place, and shelters are being set up to accommodate those who may be affected. The Italian Civil Protection Department has urged residents to stay informed and to follow any instructions from local authorities. They have also asked people to avoid driving or walking through flooded areas and to take extra care when traveling in the region. We asked 2 experts to share their opinions on the risks and on the measures that the city administration should adopt.
I believe that it is crucial to take proactive measures to mitigate the risks of a potential flood. While the current efforts of the local authorities to place bulkhead and sandbags are commendable, I believe that a more drastic action is needed to ensure the safety of the people of Pisa. I strongly recommend that the city be locked down and residents be ordered to reduce their risk by moving to higher ground. While this may seem like an extreme measure, it is necessary to prevent loss of life and property damage. We must remember that the Arno River has a history of causing devastating floods, and we cannot take any chances. The consequences of not taking adequate measures could be catastrophic, and we simply cannot afford to take that risk. Therefore, I urge the local authorities to take a more proactive approach and prioritize the safety of the people of Pisa. By taking these necessary measures, we can ensure that the city is better equipped to handle any potential flooding and minimize the potential for loss of life and property damage.
I believe it is important to take all necessary precautions to prevent flooding of the Arno River in Pisa. However, it is equally important to avoid excessive measures that could create unintended consequences. Therefore, a more cautious approach should be adopted. While it is understandable that authorities want to ensure the safety of the community, we must also consider the potential impacts of these measures. For example, excessive measures could negatively impact tourism, economic activities, and the community as a whole. Therefore, I suggest that authorities take a balanced approach that considers both the safety of the community and the potential economic and social impacts of the measures being taken. This could involve a thorough risk assessment, continuous monitoring of the situation, and an effective informative campaign.
We would like to thank the two experts for having shared with us their opinion. We asked passersby if they were aware of the possibility of traffic restrictions and early closing of shops and if they agreed with such measures.
Non ne sapevo nulla, ma non sono d'accordo. Va sempre così, chiudono tutto e non succede mai nulla. Creano solo molti disagi per le persone che devono andare a lavorare o tornare a casa. Dovrebbero adottare queste misure solo se il rischio è reale.
I didn't know about the flood risk. Neither the hotel staff nor the staff of the tourist office told me anything. I don't mind the restrictions that they're required to guarantee our safety, but everyone, including tourists, should be informed about the risk and countermeasures.
We also have a declaration from the mayor of Pisa about the current situation.
È difficile decidere cosa fare. Ricevo indicazioni contrastanti dagli esperti e non è semplice scegliere se chiudere la città o gestire la situazione in un altro modo.
The situation is being closely monitored, and updates will be provided as the situation develops. We will keep you posted on developments in the next hours, thanks to our reporters in Pisa.
Okay. Thanks. But particularly, I want to thank Matteo because he worked a lot on this video, so thanks to him for preparing it. So yeah, there's one last round of Slido, just as a quick comment and reaction poll on the video, which will be the basis for the discussion tomorrow in the master classes and in the plenary on the last day. Okay, so if you can, again. Okay, yeah.
As before, I apologize for all difficulties.
Okay.
Sorry, maybe just that you will find there will be 5 questions. You can also actually reply, select multiple answers. And there are no right or wrong questions, really. It's just what you would do in a situation like that. Or what you think should be more appropriate. You will find all the questions just scrolling down.
related to the question of where is the wine, you won't be getting it until at least 30 over those answers. Oh yeah, it's sort of speeding up. At least 30. Shall we wait till 40 and that's not it? Five still typing, 2 typing. Okay. We'll give you 30 more seconds. Seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So let's maybe see the results and comment a bit on the answers. Okay. So the first option was the most selected one. Verify the veracity of the information received before making any further decision. Yeah. People looking for more clarity and additional info. Okay. Second one, bring together authorities in charge of the preservation of cultural property in order to set up the most appropriate procedures. So here, it won by a slight majority. So
yeah, with the fact that one could opt for more options. I mean, there are also high percentages for the other ones, but still a majority for the first reply. Let's see that the third one on the effective communication strategy, so strategy towards the public. So there's quite a strong preference on only using official channels of communication, although I would say that this might be, I mean, there may be not always the most widespread, or so there will be an issue, I think, also on how to use social media maybe more efficiently, but understand, I mean, the risks entailed in using channels other than the official ones. But then there will be a masterclass on risk communication where probably you will discuss this more in detail.
okay, so opposition to drastic measure, more drastic measure by local shop owners. So as you see, the fact that you need to take into account the position of many stakeholders, and so the preference goes to taking into account them together with the position expressed by other stakeholders. So not the prevalence of any given specific group, and the other options seem to be much less preferred. So this is again another thing that will be discussed, particularly in dealing with the perception of risk and the position of different components of society.
Okay, yes, and this was on the involvement of other scientists and experts. And again, I think there are more or less the first two, so should only be invited to provide independent advice to the public authorities, or also should be invited by the mayor to be involved in the decision makers. Both have, to be involved in decision making. They both have rather high results. But this also will be discussed, I think, in detail in various master classes tomorrow on how to involve experts and what administrations, local administration or public authorities should do in order to get scientific insights. But maybe I don't know if any other older panelists or JP, you have comments on the answers?
It's, I think, interesting that you are not homogeneous. There's quite a lot of different opinions how to proceed on, one could say, relatively simple questions. As was discussed already with the panel, that the common language is not so straightforward. Any other panelists want to comment on the?
In general, I selected the answers that were at the top level, so I mostly agree. There is some nuances in the other ones. For instance, I was commenting with Tom this second place of this question. I think that, in my opinion, we should not mix in the decision-making process because there is an issue of responsibility. So it should be clear responsibility of what is in charge of whom. So taking the decision altogether is not exactly the right thing, in my opinion.
Good. Too many cooks makes bad soup. Tom? Any reflections?
But perhaps even scientists that are part of the administration, it's a little bit the same, that there's a difference between science advice and decision making. Okay, some people are hybrid people and move from scientists to decision makers to parliamentarians and all, and then depending on the role. But I think this was said also very clearly, by Chiara Carrozza, that once you leave your role as decision maker, you change completely. And you're a scientist again, and it has to be very clear what one role is and what the other role is, that you can keep them very separately. Advice is advice, and decision-making is another thing.
Professor, any last words before we? Okay. Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
that was enough for today. So now don't run away because there's a group photo, and Professor De Gutte will escort you to the place where the photo will be taken, and then you will have the guided tour of the square, and the guide will bring you back here for the dinner. So see you later and enjoy your visit of Pisa.
Applause to yourself, first of all, arriving at.